Avengers Age of Ultron was not able to live up to the hype of the original. Don't get me wrong, Ultron is a decent Marvel movie with some excellent character moments and a lot of fun action scenes, albeit some dodgy CGI. Sorry, now you'll never be able to not see that. But I believe in an attempt to up the ante, Marvel went in too many different directions, and what could have been a solid successor to one of the most popular movies of the decade turned into an entertaining mess. But I don't think it had to be that way. I think if it focused more on concepts that existed in the film but didn't get enough time to fully develop, Age of Ultron could have really worked. And I believe there is one small change that could be made to Avengers Age of Ultron that would streamline the story and make Ultron a far more interesting villain. And that change is, Ultron shouldn't be able to kill. So I'm going to go through the 3 most significant ways that I believe a non-lethal killer robot would make Avengers Age of Ultron a more successful movie, and walk you through how this one change would affect the story overall. Starting with Ultron's Problem. In the original Age of Ultron, once Ultron wakes up, he immediately merges with the Iron Legion protocol and goes on a killing spree. There is nothing stopping him, no barriers, no countermeasures. It's a little too easy. And it also feels a lot like so many other killer robot stories from science fiction. Robot gains sentience, robot determines that humanity is a problem and must kill people to save them from themselves, and then the killing starts. It's a cliche. Ultron should be different in some way. This story would be a lot more entertaining if there was something standing between Ultron and his goal. And Ultron's creation makes Tony look like an idiot. I mean, the Scepter intelligence is kind of its own thing, but the Iron Legion protocol was created by Tony. There should be some rules that the Iron Legion follows, and since Ultron is part of the Iron Legion, Ultron must follow as well. And there is already a set of rules that Tony would probably start with. The 3 laws of robotics created by science fiction writer Isaac Asimov are a fictional set of rules hardwired into every artificial intelligence to keep AI in check. You've likely seen them in science fiction before. They look like this. Number 1, a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. Number 2, a robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings, except when such orders would conflict with the first law. Number 3, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second laws. And number 1 outranks the others. I'm sure you can see by now the issue Law 1 presents. The robot can't harm humans, but it can't let them be harmed, so what if one human is inadvertently causing harm to another human, yada yada yada. That's almost always how these stories work in movies. But Tony's a smart guy. What if these laws worked? He would hardwire them into the Iron Legion protocol. He might even be smart enough to split Law 1 into Law 1A, robots can't harm a human being, and 1B, robots can't allow a human being to come to harm, so that 1A supersedes 1B. That way, Tony's still responsible for creating Ultron, but since Ultron can't harm people, Tony doesn't look like as much of an idiot. The Avengers need Ultron back since he took the scepter, but Ultron doesn't yet pose an existential threat to humanity. And yeah, if Ultron doesn't try to harm the Avengers, we don't get this fight scene. Oh, what a huge loss. The fight isn't that great, it's hard to see, and it doesn't bring anything new to the table. Besides, the most interesting part of that scene is Ultron's speech, and now we can use the speech to not only set up Ultron's reasoning behind needing to destroy the Avengers, but also introduce this new issue that Ultron can't destroy the Avengers himself. And in reality, this speech is just a distraction so that Ultron can steal the scepter. But it will give the audience a lot of important information. Ultron's Solution. So if Ultron's incapable of harming the Avengers, how is he going to stop them? He can't fight them himself. Tony's rules even stop Ultron from indirectly causing people harm by doing things like sabotaging their jet or setting a fire somewhere he knows they will be. Well, this Ultron will do what movie Ultron kind of does, and comic Ultron has done many times in the past. He'll have people do it for him. I know I said Ultron can't do something that he knows will cause someone harm, even indirectly, but in his eyes, humans are unpredictable. Ultron can't know that if he tells Quicksilver where to find the Avengers, Quicksilver will harm them. He might, but humans have free will, so it isn't a certainty. And that's the loophole Ultron is going to use to destroy the Avengers. He's going to assemble a team of the Avengers' enemies and let them kill the Avengers for him. At least, that's plan A. We'll get to plan B later. So who does Ultron recruit? Well, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are a good start. They blame Tony for destroying their home and killing their family since Stark Industries built weapons of war. There's also Ulysses Klaue. This version holds a grudge against Tony because Tony dicked him over at some point. Let's also bring back Crossbones and Abomination. Rumlow hates Captain America, and Abomination would probably like another shot at Hulk. So there's the team. We've got some new characters mixed in with the few characters who fans have been wondering about for a while. And Ultron can not only use the teams to fight the Avengers, but gather the items he needs to complete Plan B. Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, Klaue's mercenaries, and one Ultron go to South Africa to get the vibranium, and at the same time, Crossbones clones Abomination and a second Ultron go to South Korea to steal the cradle. One of the coolest things about Ultron is that he can be in multiple places at once. And that kind of happens in Age of Ultron, but having the South Africa and South Korea scenes take place concurrently really drives that home. And it'll force the Avengers to split up, disassemble. A team of Iron Man, Banner, Black Widow, and War Machine, why not, will go to South Africa, and Thor, Captain America, Hawkeye, and Falcon will go to South Korea. I think it makes enough sense to use the new Avengers in this fight. If the threat seems as serious as it is, I don't see why the Avengers wouldn't call for a little backup. And you may be asking, why not send the Hulk to fight Abomination since they fought before in Hulk 1? Well, the South Africa fight is in an abandoned freighter on a pretty remote shore, while the South Korea fight is in the middle of a crowded city. As much as Hulk would be an asset against Abomination, he could be a serious liability if he loses control. That's gonna happen in South Africa anyway, but the intention is there. Besides, Thor's done a number on Hulk in the past, and since Abomination is a less powerful Hulk, Thor should be able to handle it. And during the South Africa confrontation, Ultron will name this team. Somewhere in a back and forth with Iron Man, Ultron will say, "You thought you could be our puppet masters forever? Well, time's changed. We are the masters now." Ultron naming his team the Masters is both a way to explore some themes and ground the film in comic history. The theme of control is one the movie keeps coming back to. Ultron feels like a puppet on a string, being controlled by Tony. He explicitly brings it up in his introduction speech, and throughout the film sings "I've Got No Strings" from Pinocchio, a movie about a puppet who wants to be a real boy. The rest of the group, and some of the world, feels like the Avengers have taken control away from them by either putting him in prison or intervening in global conflicts. So this name demonstrates that Ultron has convinced the team if they all unite and take down the Avengers, they can have control back. Furthermore, Ultron now sees himself as the puppet master, manipulating other villains to do his bidding. This name even hints at his eventual goal, which we'll get to later. And naming the team the Masters is also a fun way to reference the Marvel Comics classic Avengers villain group, the Masters of Evil. Formed in Avengers 6 back in 1964, the Masters of Evil are a group of villains that regularly band together to fight the Avengers. Originally, the group was led by Baron Heinrich Zemo, but as time went on, many different villains took over the reins, including Dr. Octopus, Egghead, Helmet Zemo, and even, you guessed it, Ultron. He formed the second iteration of the group, and in that story, used them to attack the Avengers. And it's a pity that the Masters of Evil have never made it to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're one of the biggest parts of Avengers history that the movies haven't touched, and since the Cinematic Universe seems to be barreling towards some kind of grand cosmic conclusion, Age of Ultron is really the only opportunity to include the Masters in the MCU. Plus, adding a group of villains makes the action more unique. It's fun to watch heroes with all kinds of powers fight villains with all kinds of powers. Too often, Marvel movies are either one hero versus the mirror image of that hero, or a team of heroes versus waves of drones. I think that's partly why the airport fight in Civil War was so popular. The diversity of abilities was something new. So the fights are about the same. South Africa's a disaster, ending with Ultron and the twins escaping with the vibranium, and Iron Man forced to Hulkbuster an out-of-control Banner. In South Korea, Thor stops Abomination while Cap and Falcon take down a heavily armored Crossbones, but Ultron escapes with the cradle, and this time Hawkeye. Now Black Widow can lead the team back to the Barton farm. It's a lot less of a happy reunion since Hawkeye was kidnapped, but Mrs. Hawkeye can show some resolve and charge the Avengers with saving the world and bringing Clint home safely. Fury also gets to give his speech. Black Widow figures out where Ultron is keeping Hawkeye using their secret spy technique, and once the team puts their heads together, with Thor's knowledge of what an Infinity Stone can do, Steve and Tony's knowledge of what vibranium could be used for, and Banner's knowledge of how the cradle can bring it all together, they're able to figure out what Ultron's actually after. They leave the farm and go to the location where Ultron is holding Clint. Ultron's Endgame. So let's talk about what Ultron is actually up to. He's been doing two things throughout the film. The first is orchestrating a series of fights between the Avengers and the Masters, but that is not his endgame. Ultron wants the Avengers dead, but his programming is stopping him from killing the Avengers. So, Ultron is working on eliminating that programming. Ultron has been collecting the things he needs to turn himself into a real boy. He figured out that he can use the Mind Stone to create a new consciousness without any governing laws, no strings, true free will, total control. This consciousness will live in the Mind Stone, which needs to be housed in a body made of the only metal on Earth strong enough to contain an Infinity Stone, vibranium. And Ultron is going to create the body with the cradle. That way, Ultron will have an incredibly powerful and virtually indestructible body with which he can kill the Avengers. I believe this is a much more solid reason for Ultron to create Vision. In Age of Ultron creates the Vision because he wants the most powerful body. But when the Vision is stolen and Ultron Ultron can't transfer his consciousness into a new body, it doesn't really throw a wrench into things. He continues the plan without Vision. In this version, Ultron creates Vision because he needs a consciousness so that he can complete his goal. Making Vision is the only way that Ultron can truly win. Vision is a need. So the Avengers can get to Ultron's base right as he finishes creating this new body. Ultron rises out of the cradle. The vibranium hasn't even cooled from the procedure, so his new body is glowing a hot red, and he says, "Behold my Vision." Now, besides harkening back to Vision's first comic appearance, those words are the signifier that Ultron is done. This is his final form, his vision realized. So this new final fight gives us some really great opportunities. It gives us a chance to clearly explore what Vision can do. Vision has, maybe even more than Superman, the most random grab bag of powers in comics. He can fly, change his density, giving him enhanced strength, use his density shifting abilities to phase through objects, shoot a laser beam out of his forehead, change his appearance at will, and interface with technology. That means one Vision is equal to an entire team of X-Men that includes Angel, Colossus, Shadowcat, Cyclops, Morph, and Network, who is a mutant who can control technology. Google it, it doesn't matter. Vision has a ton of powers. And in Age of Ultron, we never get a good look at them. It would make much more of an impact if we, the audience, are introduced to Vision's powers at the same time as the Avengers are. We get to be surprised with them. And to Age of Ultron's credit, this kind of scene almost ended up in the movie. There's a deleted and somewhat finished fight between Vision and the Avengers that takes place immediately after Vision wakes up. You can find it online. Also, this new fight is now very different from the fight at the end of Age of Ultron. It isn't the Avengers versus an army of faceless drones. The Avengers are teaming up to fight what is now one of the most powerful beings in the universe who wants nothing but their destruction. It's much more personal. The stakes are high, but not the end-of-the-world blue laser in the sky kind of high stakes that we're used to in these movies. It's just the heroes who we have spent the last 7 years getting to know, coming together and fighting for their lives. And Ultron will nearly win that fight. He's stronger than the Avengers, and Ultron has been using the fights against the Masters to analyze the individual Avengers' fighting style and figure out ways to counter them. The turning point in the fight comes when Ultron accidentally calls Tony Mr. Stark, signaling that Jarvis is still connected to Ultron. And if the Avengers can somehow get Jarvis back into control, Jarvis can stop Ultron. Everyone works together to distract Ultron and get Wanda close enough to mind whammy the now conscious Ultron, giving Jarvis the opportunity to take over and destroy Ultron's consciousness once and for all. Oh yeah, and in the process, Quicksilver dies. I don't care how, someone's gotta die and it's him, sorry. Even though there isn't a Sokovia incident, General Ross will still blame the Avengers for the messes in South Africa and South Korea, which will force the formation of what will now be called something like the Avengers Accords. And Vision can now do whatever he wants. He can join the team, he can go on a voyage of self-discovery. As long as Vision is backed by Infinity War, everything is where it needs to be. In conclusion, I don't think the movie was bad. I just think Avengers Age of Ultron would be a much more effective movie if Ultron couldn't kill. Tony would look like less of an idiot, Ultron would be forced to form the Masters of Evil, and this new Vision-Ultron hybrid would result in a much more intimate and engaging finale. So thank you to everybody that patronizes me. If you would like to see your name here, as well as get access to videos early and eventually commentary tracks, throw in $1 or $2 at patreon.com/NandoVMovies. I really appreciate it. Let me know if you think my changes worked in the comments and what you would like to see in a future Avengers movie. Like and share the video, and most importantly, subscribe to my channel. I've got similar videos on how Thor 2, Black Panther, Iron Man 3, and Civil War could have benefited in big ways from small changes. And finally, for updates on videos or just to message me, follow me on Facebook and Twitter. I'm at NandoVMovies. That's all I've got. I'll see you next time.